There is an interesting video featuring Rowan Atkinson, who is satirizing the conservatives. You may feel wrongly that comedians using their position to forward a political narrative is a recent occurrence, because comedy can be used to forward a position without many people intellectually scrutinizing it, and it is a great way to push a narrative. It has been used for more time than one can think of. Rowan Atkinson, with outlandish manners and an ulterior tone, presents himself as a conservative in the video. Of course, once he plays the role of a conservative, he, for humorous purposes, will attribute a caricature that liberals find suitable to mock of the conservatives. That itself is not surprising because Atkinson, as a defender of liberal values, of course wrote the piece based on what he would find to be worth mocking about conservatives, and that appeals liberals because of course they think like Rowan. Interesting for a crowd that calls itself a group of freethinkers, which is an irony unto itself. That is just run of the mill though. That is not as important. What is important is how Rowan does it. He has a task to identify conservatives as a party of bigotry. But he does not want to identify only some conservatives as bigots. So he generalizes. And while he identifies himself as one conservative among many, he uses the term we to refer to the belief of conservatives, to attribute the beliefs he is speaking to everyone or almost everyone of them. This of course would be standard bigotry, which in leftist and liberal parlance means negative generalization based on group characteristics without first-hand experiential knowledge of the person being lampooned. Now of course this is not surprising. Liberals often have grouped people together in different classes, and especially their political opponents. It is a tactic too beneficial to give up. Let's see.
I am a golfer. But I'm also a conservative, and the Conservatives are back in power. What a wonderful word. But with a new initiative, and above all, a new...
Then he assures us, with a rather unconvincing tone, ending in a questioning voice, as if entirely unsure himself, that conservatives do not think of immigrants as animals. Of course, if he says that directly, it would not be funny, and would also lead people to ponder whether conservatives actually think of immigrants as animals. Aside from the fact that all humans are animals, especially to Darwinian evolution believing liberals, it is quite clear that the term that is emotionally laden still does not apply, for even the worst of treatment towards any immigrant is still not similar to treatment towards animals. It is just like the common argument of liberals and feminists that a patriarchal society treats women as a baby-making machines. This argument is often made in an emotional context to bias people's feelings, because no one actually comes to mind who treated women anything close to a machine, in actual sense, and so the argument must be doused with a slanted emotional context. But then he does an interesting thing. He presents the line, I personally know many people of the group X, and they are all nice, as a sort of an excuse to hide an actual evil thought. It is worth remembering that the people finding this skit great in 1980s today lament when the leftists use it to demonize who they themselves consider good people. But the seed of this irrational argument was planted by liberals themselves. Karma is a good thing, ain't it?
And we are mostly concerned with two main issues. Firstly, immigration. Now, people really do get this party wrong every time on this issue, don't they? We don't think immigrants are animals, for God's sake. I know a lot of immigrants personally, and they're perfectly...
He then attributes a sort of consumerist approval by conservatives towards the usefulness of immigrants. Let's see.
Now, a lot of immigrants are Indians and Pakistanis, for instance, and I like curry. But now that we've got the recipe, is there really any need for them to...
Let's see. This is interesting because if you really look at it, the argument is popular among liberals. The idea of different cultures providing different things to consume and being beneficial in this way is a liberal idea of abject hedonism. And Rowan knows this, and that is why he presents it as a conservative argument to appeal normal people who by this time are liberal in some form. There is a massive projection going on, and we see the finality of it dropped when Atkinson says the following.
Mr. Whitelaw has spoken of the short, sharp shock treatment and his introduction of the 24,000-volt electric chair to 2 Home Office detention centres begins next week, on a purely experimental basis, of course. If it doesn't work, then of course we will be more than prepared to revert to the old liberal, wishy-washy, socialist, nigger-loving, red, left-wing, homosexual, commie ways of the recent past. But please, let's have a chance. It may be a tough road, we know, but don't forget, it is easier for a rich man to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a camel to... than it is for a camel to...
Here, not only Atkinson is projecting based on his own experience of what liberalism is closely associated with, he ends with a joke on camel toe, which occurs, for the people who don't know, when the outline of a woman's labia majora is seen in tightly fitting clothes, something you presume liberals would defend as sexual expression. But here Atkinson attributes that to conservatives, again reaching the height of projection. This is an interesting analysis of the comedic period where liberals enjoyed supremacy because of their control of mass media. But this was not just because liberals trying to control media directly and definitively, but also because the content that they offered, because it was fantastical and distanced from reality in its most stringent and strict form, appealed to a lot of normal people as a way of escape.